I'm sure that a lot of people, I'm sure that everyone here, I may see some nodding heads, have seen news reports, seen stuff in the media around the current state of our food system. Seen some things about scares of spinach or carrots or meat recalls, different things. Do I see nodding heads? Yes. So I'm briefly going to go through some of the things that are creating that food crisis that we're having. So one is that it's increasingly difficult, and this started a long time ago, this isn't new to now, but it is difficult for farmers to make a living wage. If farmers can't make a living wage, who's going to grow and raise the food that we eat? That's a big question, right? There are fewer and fewer active farmers. Farmers are getting out of farming. Why? One, because they can't make a living wage, and a whole host of other reasons. If you look at the Canadian census, in this particular region, between 2001 and 2006, there was a significant decrease in the number of farmers in this region. And the average age of farmers is increasing as well, quite significantly. Any guesses what the average age of a Canadian farmer is right now?
55. 72.
We're close, we're in 50s, definitely in your 50s. So as you can imagine, we need to start getting that median, that average age down a little bit so that we have more people coming in. That's just showing that there aren't a lot of young people going into farming. Farmland is being eaten up, excuse the pun, by development. Do people see that around here? A lot of farmland is being used for purposes other than farms. What would be one of the biggest ones? Any guesses? Houses, absolutely. And that is prime agricultural land that can feed a city is being eaten up by houses and by development. So if we lose our farmers and we lose our land, how are we going to eat?
As a beef farmer supplying locally grown, artificial hormone and antibiotic-free beef to food service businesses and retail outlets, I can tell you that it is quite difficult. My competition is usually one of a few large meat companies. One of the reasons that local is so important for our survival is that this is the one area that these conglomerates cannot compete. A meat recall at Loblaws this past summer for parts of Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes in small print mentioned that the meat had been sourced in the United States. The first challenge that I face with a potential new client is usually price. If the business owner is not already predisposed to purchasing local food, then the price discussion is often the end of the meeting. Wholesalers often have contracts with restaurants that assure that they purchase everything from coleslaw to filet mignon, as well as paper towels, cutlery, etc. They then kick back a small percentage of the entire year's purchases to the business, a tidy sum of cash at year end, and very hard to break into that type of arrangement. We've ran into it more than a few times. One chef said to me, from a very large restaurant and hotel, "I don't like to say that we're one-stop shopping, but we basically are. Chain restaurants generally are not interested in purchasing unless you can supply the entire chain. Many institutions demand that they only purchase meats that are federally inspected. Schools, seniors' residences, hospitals all fall into this category. The closest federal plant is in Toronto, but Eastern Ontario does have quite a few provincially licensed abattoirs. As you have just heard, there's a veritable minefield for all farmers to navigate if we are to be successful in our farm businesses. You can help by supporting Savour Ottawa verified establishments and farmers. If your favorite restaurant or food store is not a Savour Ottawa member or does not have Savour Ottawa verified items on the shelf or on the menu, ask them when they are going to join the local food movement.
Myself as a restaurateur, I grew up in a rural community in northeastern New Brunswick, so it's in my blood, and it's just the right thing to do to purchase from local farmers. Have you ever heard of a local meat recall from a local farm? No, you don't. Because why? Because they don't spread manure on their food. As I do with products and sourced from the States now, it's a very difficult situation as a restaurateur, but if there's any other restaurateurs, chef restaurateurs out there, it's vitally, vitally important that you purchase from local farmers. It's so important to keep the money here in the agricultural community to help keep supporting farmers so they can keep growing their businesses. It's a very, very simple solution, and it's community-based. The single biggest way that you can talk is with your pocketbook. Money rules. And you can make it change. Even the bigger the corporate conglomerate are if you can demand it. And those bigger stores that don't really support local but are starting to are even trying to make change. But from a restaurateur's point of view, it's very, very important. And the most important thing is you, the consumer, is to support your local agricultural community. It is so vitally important that these farms keep going. The benefits are just tremendous. Let's look at our food miles. Number one, that's a big thing right there. And the more that we support these farmers, the more that they'll be able to grow their businesses and be able to even supply us year-round possibly sometimes. And some of those things might happen if supporting things, as Dan said, the Lansdowne Farmers Market, and demanding that the provincial and our municipal government step in and make a difference. The health benefits are tremendous, from getting people to not have to consume cheap, highly processed food. One of the saddest things I had, in addition to not only Dan's a great farmer, but I was a fellow from Niagara named Tory Warner. There is tons of fruit rotting on trees in Niagara because the provincial government would not step in and help them stop from closing the last fruit processing plant in Canada. None of our fruit is processed in Canada anymore. It's sickening.
How many of you had a glass of wine this week? Whew. I'm talking to the right crowd. How about last night? I did while I was writing my speaker's notes. How many of those, honestly, for those of you who actually had a bottle of wine this week or a glass of wine this week, it was Canadian? Pretty much most of you. Great. And I'm really glad to see that. And for those of you who do enjoy wine, I hope all of you will help support the VQA wine, because those people who actually have established wineries, we talk about dreams here. People who have established wineries, they've started and established their dream. They've dreamt about being a winemaker or owning a winery or having a vineyard, and it's so important for them to embark on that journey and make that dream happen. The least we could do is buy a bottle of their wine and share it with our friends and support their dreams, right? And that way, our Canadian wine economy, or wine business that we have, it will continue to grow. And right now, across Canada, we have about 300 wineries. And that's very small compared to the rest of the world. But you know what's really interesting? It's only in the last 8 to 10 years we have had an insurgent of these wineries being established. Here in Ottawa region, we have, guess what? 4 wineries nearby. Anybody been to any of those wineries? Yep, 1, 2, 3. Half an hour away, we have Chesterville, Domaine de Salvin, Oxford Station. That's not even half an hour away. There's Green Gables, Gatineau, Clos de Bailly, Navan, Domaine Perrin. And the Ottawa Citizen did an article recently about the tour, and that's really interesting. We all know, right here in Ottawa, we talk about supporting local farmers. Well, wine is food just as much as you bring your beef and your vegetables to your table. Bring Canadian wine to your table. Hope you enjoy the wines that we are having this evening. As a sommelier, I picked out 3 different wines for the reception tonight, and it just gives you a taste that Canada makes wine, fantastic wine, all that is impressing the world. So I hope it impresses you. Cheers.